Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and if I could get a verification that you guys can hear us, that would be great. Hello, hello. And I think we're running about 20 or so seconds behind, or maybe a little less. So, looks like we have Incense Shop, Dion Jones, Linda Taylor, Twin Cedar Farms. Welcome, everybody. And probably a few more people trickling in here. But it's been another slow week on our YouTube channel. I apologize for that. It's been busy around here outside of YouTube world. But okay, good. We have sound. Awesome. So,
A lot of permaculture stuff today.
yeah, we did a lot of stuff today. Not a lot of videoing today,
No,
but a lot of
too busy getting stuff done.
yeah, just not enough time to get everything done. And I still have videos I'm working on. So, we'll give you little updates and pictures though, and hopefully that'll hold until we could get things caught up and going. So, hello, Kalamazoo Permaculture. It was nice to see you today.
Yeah, we got to hang out a good part of the day.
Yep. Hi, Tina. So yeah, we got to meet Kalamazoo Permaculture today, which was not exactly a planned meeting. It just happened and it helped
We all
out.
ended up at the same permaculture places, helping out a friend and getting some hazelnuts and other items from an area that's going to be ransacked as part of an easement update.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
I have a picture that you took because
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there because we had visitors here too. Um, this is at PJ's place, right? And they were having to move a bush out from under the lines.
Many bushes.
Many bushes.
So he's one of the more experienced and knowledgeable permaculture people in the area. And we've been out there. He lives pretty close to us,
Yeah.
quite close, and I've been out there a few times. And he had an open call for specifically hazelnuts for splitting hazelnut bushes. He has some fairly high tension wires that go through the middle of his growing property.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, they're due for a significant upgrade, and that means the whole easement area is going to be roughly bulldozed
Hmm.
in the process of putting in huge galvanized lines for a major upgrade, and that means a lot of what he's done over the last 6 or 7 years is in jeopardy of being destroyed. So
Yeah.
he was having some of it professionally
Moved.
scooped and moved over to property he has around the corner and moving it out of the way. And then he invited some of us out to get some of the splits off of stuff and some of the other stuff that he wasn't high enough value, wasn't going to move it. And so there's probably a dozen people.
Yeah.
And yeah,
We got some things. We planted.
mostly hazelnuts because that's been on our short list and we just didn't really have much. And so I was like, it's totally worth it. I can make it over. Let's go do.
So that went into our ground. That is a hazelnut.
That's a large wild one that may be lineage up to 40 years
Yeah.
old. We're using that more as a pollinator, unknown fruiting
Yeah.
quality.
And
We
then
then
behind
have
it,
6 or 7 little shoots that were splits that are off of notable,
nice nuts.
that have high flavor nuts on them. So we put in, I guess, 7 of those, and then the one larger one.
Hi, Kara. Yeah.
And then, so those are in the ground. What did you do with the elderberry pieces?
I put the okay.
put
So
them
we
in
had
sand
cuttings. I put them in a jar of water.
Okay.
So he also gave us an elderberry cutting, which we snipped and put in a jar of water, and we're gonna try to let that root. And then once it starts rooting, we'll put it in the ground outside. So I do have that, and then we also got some lilacs.
He had a lilac. He says kind of the last one. He's like, hey, there's a lilac over there. I got plenty of lilacs if anybody wants.
Yeah.
There's 1 or 2 there. They can dig them out for you. We ended up just hand digging them. And so we split that into 2 pieces.
Oh, and hi, Carrie, too. I missed
So
you.
we put a lilac on the site.
Yeah. So we put a lilac just by our bedroom window, which should be nice when it starts blooming. We have one on the other side of the bedroom too. So I love lilacs, so that's nice to put in the ground. So we have some new additions to our food forest. We're gonna have to this spring probably do a walkthrough update on what's taken and worked and what we've been doing in our food forest area. So we'll have to take you through that once things start greening up here. Probably a little too early to see much at the moment, but yeah. And we also had a visitor come spend the weekend with us. My nephew, Taylor, came to spend the weekend with us, and this is Taylor hanging out with Puddin', and Taylor and Puddin' are slowly becoming friends. Taylor keeps feeding Puddin' random goodness, like bits of bacon and cheese and pieces of meatball and lots of stuff that Puddin' loves. That so she kept going up to him for snacks. But the first day she barked at him a bit, but the second day she was nervous about him. But he kept feeding her, and we went out for a walk together, and he was helping train her. And then today we went out back to where I could take Puddin' off the leash and not worry about her going towards any roads. And they played. They actually he played chase a little bit with her, and she did great and played out to, and initiated it a little bit. So they're I think going to be friends. And Puddin' hasn't known too many kids, so she's a little nervous about them. So that was a first. He also helped you make dinner on Friday night.
Yeah. You want to make some pasta?
Yeah. So he's from scratch, from the pasta machine, picked out the shape. I think I have another picture. Did I put another picture in here? Maybe not. Have to look. So yeah, and then he got to eat it as well. So pasta, meatballs, red sauce. Pretty standard, but he actually ate the whole thing. He said it was one of the best meals he's had, and he's a picky eater.
Yeah, he
So
eats like nothing.
yeah,
Unless it involves chicken fingers or sugar.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that was actually a hit for him. He also tried some sourdough bread, homemade sourdough bread, at least the insides of it.
It's too crusty. Didn't quite get the idea of that. Crust was good, and then, but yeah, the insides are soft and moist, and yeah.
Yep, and then we turned those into French toast, and he loved that. So yeah, so he was doing well, and this morning he asked for a giant pancake. So he made him a giant pancake, which he ate half of at breakfast and almost finished the other half at lunch. Didn't quite, but the chickens will finish it for us. But yeah, so pancake, sourdough bread, our French toast was actually all local, basically. You made this. You tired? You made the
I am
sourdough.
tired, but I was outside most of the day.
Yeah. You made the sourdough.
Friday I made sourdough, 2 loaves. They're pretty much gone right
Yeah.
now. What else? Maple syrup was ours.
Yep, maple syrup that we tapped from our
Eggs
trees
were
last year.
ours, and the butter and the milk were not ours. No cow.
Well, he didn't have any butter. I think the only one who had butter was my dad.
Well, you need butter to cook it. I cooked in some coconut oil.
Yeah.
Just because I like the light flavor of the coconut oil.
We don't grow coconuts around here either. So yeah, so that was fun. So Taylor spent the weekend with us, which he helped a lot with the chickens and the chicken chores. He likes gathering eggs, but he even helped me put new bedding down in the coop, so helped clean the coops a bit. And although it wasn't a full clean out, it was more just adding bedding. And helped me move the fences and just that so they could get more grass. And we separated out this evening, I guess, was back to permaculture.
Yeah.
We had Kalamazoo Permaculture come and he helped us with a few projects.
We were about 5 miles away over at PJ's, and it's like, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but more than welcome to come over and get an update of what we're doing. And so we just hung out and we walked around. We put those starts in, and we looked at the apple trees, and we walked into the backwoods and just kind of kicked around through projects that are going on and activities and stuff. So that was good. That was fun.
Yeah. So
there was. I met a bunch of new people today at PJ's. Some people I knew a little bit. I knew PJ. I know PJ and his wife. And so yeah, it was actually everyone's like, oh, it's really great. Then it's unfortunate they all kind of out on a, it's a hurried time because they're probably gonna get in there with the vehicles and bulldoze through in this next week with PJ. So it was like, you got to come out now, but it caused people to come out.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, this is great. And there's so much here and all these people that I didn't know and everybody doing different growing projects around the area. So it was actually really good on that
Yeah.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing Kalamazoo can't talk tonight. Kalamazoo Permaculture helped us with was catching roosters.
Yeah.
Our 4 young roosters in our flock where we had 2 older ones already, so too many roosters for the flock, and those young ones were just maturing and starting to
They're
drive
running all over the place.
chase each other off and drive the hens nuts and yeah, chasing each other everywhere. So we took them and put them in a separate section in a mobile coop. Um, and yeah, he helped us catch roosters middle of the day. Unfortunately, tonight I went out to close the coops at about 7:45 initially, and they hadn't gone in yet. Of course, they weren't used to that new coop. They wanted back into their main coop, the main flock. So I closed the other 2 coops, came back in because they were still out. Went back out about a half hour ago, and I look into the coop, and there's 2 roosters in the coop out of the 4. So I looked all around the area, which is not a very big area. No other roosters. Nobody in the other fenced in areas. Like they hopped over. So I'm thinking they hopped over outside and went and hid somewhere.
In the woods.
Yeah. So 2 of them got out.
That woods isn't the safest place to spend the night, though.
No. We've had some do that before.
Sometimes they make it through a couple nights, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they'll show up in the
Find
morning.
them pecking at the side of the fence trying to get back in the morning.
Yeah,
That's
right.
pretty likely.
Yeah, so if they found a good hiding spot for the night, they were going to be pretty much called anyway for meat, but
We'd rather eat them after feeding them than give them away
to hawks or owls or
whatever it
something.
is. Coyote running through there. So
Yeah, so and Carrie says she's getting goose eggs now.
I see that.
Yeah, so is Justin, I guess, got his first goose egg from his new goose.
So it's
So
the beginning of spring.
yep. Ours are boys, so we will not get goose eggs.
We got first loaves of sourdough from Green Raven.
Yeah, that's better than my other no knead bread. Yeah, we do a traditional one, right?
Well, yeah, I machine knead it and then I rest it. And then I put it in forms, and depending on how wet I make it, sometimes I try and actually roll it and shape it, and sometimes it just kind of has to flop in there and squish around and form its shape. This last one was
Really wet.
pretty high hydration. It was 87, 88% hydration, so it was pretty wet. So it was almost like a ciabatta type dough. So I couldn't shape it much, but in fact, it was just wet enough. It was getting a little sticky on the fingers trying to transport it, get it out of the bag, out of the basket.
Yeah.
But it came out very good. And of course, the sourdough breaks down the flour more, changes the pH some, so it does affect the qualities a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, Karen. They're in a tree somewhere. Yes.
Probably that's our hope. That's the plan.
Yeah, so those 2 little cockerels are probably in a tree somewhere. I'm hoping they made it over to pine trees because they tend to do better in the pine trees than the trees with no leaves on them right now. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see in the morning if they show up asking for food. But
About 7:30 it gets light out right now, so we'll
yeah,
see.
we'll see in the morning.
4-inch long. Those are pretty big eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, duck eggs are big, and they're a little bigger than duck eggs. So
Yeah.
good size.
Yeah, that's probably about right. That's what I remember our goose eggs were before we hatched them. So we don't have a whole lot planned tonight. We will get to try to see if we had any more.
Happy to hear about your planting and building projects or permaculture, whatever, from the weekend. Everybody else, whoever else is out there.
Oh yeah, who else has permaculture projects going right now?
We're all talking about everybody's overloaded with projects and just kind of picking at the ones that they can get done because we're all.
Oh, I have another project. I think
a ton of stuff that we're trying to do.
I don't know if I pulled the picture of it. I did this real quick tonight. But the other project that Taylor and I were doing was we were making soil blocks for a few more seeds. So we did get some.
Yeah, you planted a bunch of seeds in the last week.
Yeah, cabbage seeds, about 3 types of cabbage, And then we did 2 types of cauliflower and then some artichoke seeds to get those started today. Yeah, got those started yesterday. And so he was having fun with the soil blocks, helping me out there. Daniel
Oh, you're
is
building
building,
just this meat show. Yeah, that'll
yeah,
work pretty well. It's a pretty good
good,
design.
yeah.
Do I test the hydration on the bread? I don't really have to. So right now we're still coming out of a very dry time from the cold weather, and so I assume that my flour is under 5% moisture. Flour is typically up to about 10%, 11, 12%, even when it's really moist. So if you're in a really dry environment or if you're in a really humid environment, you do need to be aware of your flour moisture content. It can be tested. I have a really junky um,
Moisture reader.
moisture reader that sometimes I feel like it's reading correctly and sometimes I'm pretty sure it's not.
But you
Um,
calculate it basically.
but I ignore the flour or I take into account the weather conditions. Um, and then my starter is a
Hello, Heritage.
50-50 water and rye. So that would basically be in bread terms 100% hydration. So 1 part water, 1 part flour. And then 85% is sort of the golden percentage for really nice, great dough formation and bubbles and texture. So you can go up and down from that. So I do the math backwards with was it 200 grams of the starter, so 100 grams of that is water, and then I do my percentage of 600 grams of flour in total, and then I have to backtrack out that 100 grams to make sure that I put in the right amount. And doing that, I can be pretty sure that I have a 77, an 80, 85% moisture. I can get it real close. So yeah, so I do some basic calculations, but I've also written out some formulas so that I know how many grams of water to add to get the style of loaf I want.
Kiri's got shorts on.
Really, it was kind of nice. It was like 50s today, although a little overcast, and then it got cold.
You get
So
another.
working it with I was wearing jeans and just
Yeah.
a light top without a
Yeah.
coat on. It was actually pleasant, but we were not wearing shorts
You
yet.
get another 10 degrees warmer, and you'll start seeing people in Michigan with t-shirts on.
55 degrees, 60 degrees. We'll
Yeah.
start seeing t-shirts and shorts, especially if it's sunny out and it's
Yes.
the first weeks. Everybody will be out barbecuing and yeah.
And if the loaf falls in the middle, could it be the moisture or what is that?
Well, it could be moisture. So you got a lot of things. It could be that it overproofed, that it sat too long either for the warmth or the time conditions, and that when it overproofs, your bubbles get too big and and it can cause a collapse. When you cut into the loaf, you can see the size of the holes, and for the style, if they look like you've got a big bubble to one side or you've got some bubbles that look bigger than they should be, it overproofed. So that means you need to either bring your temperature down or you need to bring your proofing time down. Um, it could be, I mean, it could be it wasn't kneaded enough or you didn't form enough of a good matrix. Um, it could be that the way you folded and did your final shaping. But I would say for most likely it has to do with overproofing, unless I know other things about it.
Yeah. So is it Delia Cortez? Finally got warm enough to put the chicks out from our house. That's cool.
We got ours out about 2 weeks ago.
We
3
don't
weeks.
have chicks.
No, not the chicks. We got our main ones out of the end of the snow, out of the main run. Yeah. Not the chicks.
If we don't have chicks, we right now we'd love for our girls to go broody any minute. Our Silky's probably about due to go broody again, which is good because I need to give her a bunch of silky eggs.
We're low on eggs and we're low on meat birds, so we need to speed that up for the beginning.
She's gonna get silky eggs so she could raise up a new set of hens to replace the ones we lost this winter, unfortunately.
77 and dark outside. That's way warmer than we are.
Yeah.
We're gonna go down to what, 29 tonight, we think?
About 30, yeah.
30. So it'll be just at the freeze point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do have the irrigation water back on, which makes it easier to fill the bowls and change the goose ponds. The goose ponds are back up running. They're
Heritage from Texas. We recently hit 3,000 subscribers, mainly because, we hit 1,000 last July 4th. So we've gotten 2,000 since then, but partially because we've been to visit the roads twice to help with their
Doing a
classes.
lot of collaborations,
A
yeah.
lot of collaborations with that.
So that with Rhodes, Art and Bree, and
And Hollers.
Hollers, and all working on those projects together, we kind of cross promoted.
Yeah.
And while we probably sent all of them a few people, they sent us probably
Probably
a few
more.
more.
um,
But yeah, a lot of it had to do with that, and then we just get all kinds of other
but
interests. Yeah,
we've had our channel going just over 2 years.
yeah.
So yeah, we started January 15th, 17, and we didn't hit 1,000 until last summer, and then we're up to over 3,000 now. So once you hit 1,000, it does start growing a little
It
faster
does seem
anyway.
like you get a little more push. Yeah, I think a lot of, and some people grow much faster.
Yeah.
I think our videos are, some of these videos are longer. They're more content and educational
Not that
driven.
much longer than a
Yeah,
lot of the
but a lot of them are a little more content driven. So
yeah. We don't
it's just a more low, it's a lower organic draw, but there's strong
yeah.
content and topical stuff. And then, Justin was like, "Don't worry about it. It's great because you actually have real content, which is what sticks around and is
Yeah.
useful. There's people that can do 10,000 in a few months, but they're pushing the algorithms and they're pushing the buttons, which is fine, but there may or may not be lasting content there. So
Yeah.
we don't really worry about it much.
Yeah, so yeah, and part of that is part of the old videos they'll keep getting replayed. So we have had high viewership since like we were over the minimum viewership for monetization before we hit 1,000 because some of our videos just uh, have taken off pretty well on educational stuff. So I think that helps. We don't have kids, so we don't have the
Yeah,
cutesy effect and
there's
all that.
there's definitely cues, and if you do your research, you
Yeah.
can build titles and topics and activities and content to blow it, try and blow it out of the water. So, but
Yeah.
we don't, we really haven't focused on trying to build algorithms, especially designed to build viewership.
Yeah, and Green Raven, yeah, Roots and Refuge have helped too because they have a live show right
Hmm.
before ours.
I was watching a little bit of that
Oh, you are
earlier.
tonight?
Yeah, they were
Okay.
just talking about some of the gardening stuff they're doing, and
I was busy trying to throw together a few pictures for this, so I didn't get a chance to go over there tonight. But yeah, overproofing was her next guest, by the
yeah,
way.
well, if you forgot it and it caved in and you're not sure, I would say
It's
so.
probably
Too
overproofing.
wet, it's gonna get really tacky where it's impossible to handle it. It's gonna flow all over. But if you feel like the dough looks and behaves in the way it kind of should, a lot of it, while you can get very technical with measuring everything to the gram and checking every the temperatures and the times and your proofing and all that will work. An awful lot of it, a good baker can look at a loaf, they can cut open a loaf, and you can look at the crust, you can look at the pill and the crumb, you can look at the rise, you can look at the oven spring, you can look at how, if you sliced it and or tore open, how that there's some things are correct, some things are options, but you can look at a lot just by feel of dough and then finished product and know exactly what would add. You can tell if you forget the salt, you can look at the crumb and you can tell that it doesn't have the salt before you taste it. Once you taste it, you definitely know the salt wasn't in there. Um, yeah, so you can really get used to that process. And overproofing is really hard because you get busy. If it's cold, you give it extra time and you wait, and then you forget or you have to do something, you can't bake it. And overproofing can really, it's still going to be edible, but you can really damage a super high quality finish with your proofing.
I do have a tip for Heritage Farms, Texas, to get some momentum going is just to a couple things I would do is be fairly regular on don't do what we're doing recently. Be fairly regular on your uploads, whether it's once or twice a week. Just keep it going consistently. Another thing is I would join. There's a couple Facebook groups that are YouTube homesteading groups, homesteaders of YouTube, small homesteaders YouTube or channels and stuff like that. And a lot of times they'll list some collaborations they're planning on doing, and if you join those, that helps cross promote the different channels that are involved there. Talking on live shows sometimes gets you a few extra viewers as well, and I find that helps.
I think Justin was saying that one of the biggest, and the algorithms are always changing, so you have to
Yeah,
stay, if you want to do that, you have
if
to
you're playing
stay
those, yeah,
constant. on figuring out what sort of YouTube and things want. But if you post small things every single day,
That will
that is one of the
huge.
big, but that's something we don't think is worth our time right now.
Yeah.
So, but if you're really serious and you want to grow fast, one is people want to see things and it keeps them cued
Yeah.
in, but posting every day, responding
Or
to
5 days a week.
comments, yeah,
Yeah.
doing the live show, doing tons of collaborations with other people.
Yeah.
Those things will hit algorithms as well as just get audience.
And share your
So
videos
yeah,
everywhere. Share your videos on Facebook, on Reddit, on Pinterest, on everywhere, and that will help bring people in from other places as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. But for new channels, those are different ideas you can use. Um, and thank you, Noah's Ark. We try to put out a lot of information on things we're learning about what we're doing as we go. Um, so I'm trying to see if yeah, it was fun. Delia, it was definitely fun meeting Art and Bree. That was the first time we met them. We had met
yeah.
Hollers in 3 different states, 3 different times. The Hollers are fun.
Here there's I know it's still on their short list to come to
Hootenanny.
Hootenanny. I mean I don't know if it's 100%, but they're still definitely
They said they were
they're
coming,
they're
barring
definitely working that way again. Want to be here, so
as long as they're not closing on a house or something
yeah.
like that. It sounds like they're going to be there. So yeah, so they're going to be there. A lot of them are going to be at Homesteaders of America next year, and that's a fun one to do. And I know their channel grew a whole lot after because they were one of the first channels to get a video that summarized the Homesteaders of America conference up. So that actually is another way to do it. But there's so much to learn there anyway. It's just a great conference to go to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's the collaborations of your whatever your area of stuff. So we do things with some really local stuff. We do things with the Michigan group of a number of YouTube channels, which basically is a feed into
Mhm.
Hootenanny. But that isn't just for that's for everybody who wants to attend. It's not YouTube fully driven. Um, and then we've been able to do some things with the roads, and
Yeah,
so having we've had multiple different activities,
outlets.
and then we touch on a variety of different topics. So
Yeah,
not everything is of interest to everybody.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you find
that's
what works for you. Um, and
what's
Carrie hit 420 this weekend. That's
oh nice.
awesome. Almost halfway to the 1,000 mark, which 500, I think every time you hit like a threshold, you get a little bit of a boost in YouTube.
They seem to throw it out there and see if it catches a little better, and
Yeah.
if they put it out to a few more people and see if they click on it or like it and
Yeah.
watch it, spend some time on it.
Yeah.
Um,
And Danielle, sorry. This is definitely side gig for us. We're just documenting for ourselves as well as now for others what our projects are, what we're doing. And I work full time. Mike owns his own business.
so
So,
part-time permies is about being part-time permaculture growing.
yes.
And the YouTube portion of it is part-time on the part-time. So yeah, and definitely it doesn't pay any bills. So
No, no.
it's
Helps cover a little bit on the camera equipment, but that's about it.
yeah, I
Not
don't think it
much.
pays for our internet for the year. So
No, no.
it's really not. It was not about that. It was more about cataloging
Yeah.
things, and then finding we could interact with people locally and further away.
Yeah, and learn more.
And then we did a lot of learning through other people that way
Yeah.
too. Best meat grinder that works for small bones like chicken bones and small grind. I'm
Mm,
guessing I would say they're generally pretty tough on grinders. The nice thing is the plates and the grinder, the cutter pieces are not that expensive to replace. So if you dull them and damage them, especially the cutters, they can actually be touched up. It's a flat cutter. So if you take it on a stone and you rub it flat, it will reestablish an edge. Eventually you get some looseness, and part of it's a scissor cutting. So as it comes through the plate and squeezes against the plate, the cutter presses hard and cuts a slicing motion across the plate. So if they're not up against each other tight, it won't work. Therefore, as you wear down the cutter, we actually take string. We would take a little butcher twine behind the cutter. And then if the string ever escapes, it's just going to go up against the cutter and it actually just kind of stops. And you
mm,
just, so but I would say that you need to go to a fairly high-powered one to effectively cut bones, even chicken bones. The roads were looking at using their meat cut for raw feeding for some of their animals. Specifically, they got a 32 head versus a 22 head, the bigger head, which is really hard to find unless you're on commercial equipment. And they got a oh, man, trying to remember what it was. It was just under $700. I think $650, maybe a little shipping. I think it was a phenomenal deal for the quality of product. For the size, it was like 2 horsepower. So I recommend don't buy anything under 1 horsepower because I feel like you're not getting enough power. But most, 1.5 is great, and I think 2 horsepower sometimes starts getting out of budget for
And they
most
got it
people.
from Webstrong?
We did get that one through Webstrong. We kind of looked at stuff and I helped them find what was right for them. And Webstrong had the best price on this model that I found anywhere, and it was still holding Weston. The Weston 2 horsepower. They're saying it's $749 right now. I was thinking it was $649, but maybe it's $749. Prices jump around, but the Weston 10 number 32 Pro Series. So 32 is the size of the grinding shaft versus 12 or 22. That's bigger than you necessarily need. Get at least a 22. The 12 is too small. And then that's a 2 horsepower. But I think a 1.5 horsepower could do it. If you're going to try and grind bone, another thing is you're going to want to use a 1/2 inch or larger die, a very large die, I think, for your first grind.
And then run it through a second time.
You may want to run it a second time or go down to a 1/4 inch die that can handle it. So yeah. And other than that, do some looking around on websites and asking some people if they've done, who else is grinding and what are they grinding with. But I think that one is going to do really well for a long period of time.
Yeah. So just give me through because we went.
And I don't have any sponsorship by Weston, so.
And
no.
Noah's Ark, he's still a chef. He has his own pasta company. That's his company.
Yeah.
So,
I'm still cooking. I mean, I'm doing lots of cooking projects on the side. I teach a couple classes. I did dinners.
You taught some classes in North Carolina.
I taught some butchering classes, which are totally a side project. I've had a lot of people saying, "Are you going to do this more? Are you going to do this on weekends? Can you do it all?" And I said, "I can't. I do markets. I have wholesale customers. I really can only do it in the middle of the winter." I was already asked to possibly go back and do some things in the middle of the summer, and I said, "I just physically can't do it. I have too many obligations to go travel and spend more than even spending a day in the summer when I'm running a midweek market, markets on the weekend, wholesale stuff, keeping up with retail and wholesale and mail order. I can't go away. The winter it works pretty well, so I like doing it, but that's far from being a employee. My employment too. So.
Delia Cortez says, I would have videos, but I can't stand listening to my own voice. I used to be one. I hated listening to my own voice. I don't watch that many of my own videos, so it doesn't matter as much. Although editing, you listen to yourself over and over and over again. But two, I used to have this mental block against cameras, which is funny because I grew up figure skating and I hated like the one show where they recorded always seemed to be the one you messed up on. But kind of stopped that at this point.
The group that you followed, the small homestead group.
Yeah, the small YouTube.
So Cindy was part of that for a while, and then had to decline herself.
No, I didn't have to decline myself. I just stopped posting videos.
Stopped posting more directly because we went over the 2,000 mark or whatever.
Yeah, it was more that it was. I think it's for people under 1,500 subscribers. A lot of them post their videos there and get feedback from others on there, and stuff like that. So that's a good Facebook group. There is another one that has that one, and there's one other on small YouTube homesteaders or discover small YouTube homesteaders. It's another group that's very similar. And then there's homesteaders of YouTube, which doesn't allow you to randomly post your videos there, but once a week they're more to help each other out and answer questions about things. But once a week they will put one post in there that anybody can pick one of their posts from that week, their favorite post or whatever from that week, or something they want feedback on, and put in the comments, and you'll get some people giving some, if you ask for it, some constructive criticism or different things on there. So that's helpful too.
So Nellie, there's a couple things. So for those that came to the farm, there was 12 people signed up for the class, and then there was a number of people assisting, mostly
Mhm.
families. So it was actually a very, very small group. The good thing is Meg Holler filmed the entire thing.
Yes.
Justin did and Cindy did still shots and specialty work on it.
Yeah.
There is going to be a hog video coming out. I don't know the release date. So you can actually get a compressed, but it will be hours, not minutes,
Hmm.
of the process if you want that for learning to possibly do it yourself. And I think it's just under $100. We've built a large written packet
Yeah.
which gives a lot more of the background detail and things you can't really explain. I mean, I couldn't explain those things in the class. We were applying them, but I combined whole animal butchery, portion cutting, of course, live kill, which is probably the rarest thing taught. Justin was very involved in that portion. Animal handling and setting that stage, which is really for a farmer, not for a chef or butcher so
Yeah.
much. So we combined all those, and then we went through some basic cooking, offal cooking or innards and harder to cook things. We had touched on some of those, put out a bunch of recipes, and then we did some basic curing and preservation. When I taught, and we taught it as close to a professional level, tailored towards the home cook homestead needs as could be. So it was a high level
Yeah.
class for those that are
Intense.
highly interested. I don't think it's highly technical in the way that people couldn't get involved, but
It was just
you
fast
had to be
paced.
seriously interested, and we had a lot of work to cover.
Yeah.
So I learned basic animal stuff, butchery, cutting, charcuterie garmager, in about 3 weeks of full day classwork at a professional level, and that was just touching on. So you can imagine we were cramming in similar content in 3 days, 27 hours of
Yeah.
contact time, which is a lot of contact time. I mean, when you look at a class and how much contact time you have, even a hands-on class, but we moved through a lot. So we have that packet. Cindy wants to inject pictures
Yep.
into it. We want to do a real light touch up, and we're going to make that available for sale, much less than $100. It's
Yeah.
$14.
$14 for it.
And then we have the beef one, and those two combined is like $20.
Yeah.
So those two things, if you put those two together, it's the next best thing to being there. And then not necessarily just to buy it from us, which is great, but it is it will truly give you 90% of what happened. And we know most people just can't take the time to travel and spend a whole weekend doing it. You don't get the hands-on where you are physically there doing the cuts and able to ask questions and interact. That's what's missing, but the instructional is there if you are looking for that.
And no, he didn't use the 22.
We did a 22 with one of them, but Justin
Not
used a
his.
410.
Yeah, he used his 410.
Yeah,
There was another person there who had a hog there, and
one of his hogs.
he had he used the 22.
He
but
wanted to use the
410.
22 because that's the most commonly used on farms.
But Justin used 410, and it worked really well. He was calm. He did it, took his time,
He was within an inch or two of the head. He set it up,
yeah,
and those hogs literally
dropped.
fell over dead. I mean, they were barely falling over, and they were out cold. Didn't move, didn't move other than a reflex. It was so perfect, all four of them. The 22 wasn't as good. It doesn't have the power. Now, he used a regular 22 rifle, did not use a 22 Magnum.
Yeah.
Most people use a 22 Magnum. He had to take 2 shots.
The other guy.
Yeah,
not
Justin. So the other one that was done with the 22 had to take 2 shots. One because of the power of it. One was probably downward directed just a little bit off of the brain. I mean, it was between the eyes, but you actually go just a little above. So it was a little longer kill. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. And he corrected second shot. We bled out, and but it was actually really good to train. Look at the two. We dug out the bullets. We checked where it went, and what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was actually good training of how, when you don't have a quite perfect kill, how do you calmly set it up and finish the job so nobody gets hurt and you don't prolong it. But we do think that 410 was amazing. And the other recommendation from everybody is, if you're going to use a 22, use a 22 Magnum. You need the extra power. And that is the most common. Yeah, some people do say there is a 22 can ricochet. I have heard 2 accounts, one firsthand, and one that was a firsthand video. My understanding is so why it would happen is the head is very strong and hard. The problem being if you get the wrong angle and you get, I think it's like a 20-degree angle or 25, you can get it to slip off potentially, and that can cause a ricochet, which could be very dangerous. In fact, the one account I heard about, it ricocheted and hit the father. Had either shot, I think the father shot it. It actually ricocheted and hit him in the chest, and
Oh,
it was not
geez.
life threatening, but they needed immediate medical attention for the father. So that's about the worst of all situations. And it's very rare because we did a lot of research, Justin and myself, and we did a lot of talking about, because Justin was buying a new gun, what he wanted to use, and by far the most common is a 22. So that's why there might be higher miss rates, and if you use the right angle and everything, it should be okay. The 410 he wanted to be able to do cattle, and so 22 is not going to be powerful enough for cattle. The 410 was going to handle all circumstances, and so he chose that. And so there's definitely a preference towards that. We also do it with a friend who used a 9mm handgun. He was careful with his bullet selection, and he is military trained, and it worked great. But again, he says he's probably the weird, the odd guy out that sits there with a 9mm handgun to do it. But he says he's always done it that way, and it was very effective.
And that was the gun he was most comfortable with, so that was.
And we're not firearm experts at all, but I can tell you firsthand that I think the 22 Magnum's appropriate. The 410 worked phenomenally well.
Yeah. So Nellie, in Virginia, not that far. It was kind of interesting because there were a dozen participants, 2 women who had come together, and they've been on, visitors to our live show occasionally, but had come together, mother and daughter, who basically just wanted to watch the whole thing, and then they got their hands in when started the cooking on day 3, which was fine. We told people that they could participate in any part that they're comfortable with. They don't have to participate in all parts because there were plenty of people, which is helpful.
Yeah, and the general thing is people signed up because most people have animals on property. Or they wouldn't be that interested in spending their entire weekend and hoteling and the whole deal to be there. But it's also something you can work from post kill if that's not something you want to get involved in. So we did talk about it was a working learning. We were doing the labor of processing and needed the extra hands to get it done. But we also did talk about, look, you may choose to only do portions of this. We bit off a big chunk because we needed to show a lot of different things. But based upon your skills, your ability to do and handle the weight and the activities and your space, you can kind of check in and check out of these projects. So you can buy a quarter, a hanging side, a large cut, and then you can break it down. You could buy a whole ham and you could set it up to make prosciutto. You can buy a whole shoulder and make sausage if the cooking's more your thing, or you just want to be able to take a loin and do portion cuts so that you can vac seal them, get a good buy, get it from a farm where you have a good quality product so you can kind of check into the process whenever you want, and not feel so obligated that just because you came to a class or you're interested in this, you have to raise the thing all the way through making your own sausage or your own ham.
No, you can. There's definitely multiple places where you can get into that. We often purchase whole animals or sides or whatnot for our freezer because we don't raise large animals on property.
Better price, and then we also talk about being able to handle and manage it. Now, what Justin talks about, and he does have that new video out today. I only saw the teaser for it, but he's concerned about the stress of the animal, the quality of the animal. You spent so much time feeding and taking care of and trying to make sure you have a perfect animal. Why do you take something out of your hands where you could continue to control that activity, make sure it was perfect? You don't have the stress, and you also don't have the cost of transport and paying the butcher. But all very concerned about how animals are sometimes treated once you drop them off, and the wait time, and the lack of quality in processing or the ingredients used. So if you want to do it on property, it can be very efficient and effective, or getting a group of people to help you do it. And as I think Justin said the same thing. The 410 is they're looking at it as a farm that's a cattle farm. He's like, the 410 works. He says, we have coyotes, we have large animals. If a large animal goes down and gets hurt, we have hogs. he says, with a 410 shotgun, we can do anything we need to. If there's a bad situation or we're in a, and then you can do hunting and whatever else. He says it's all available. It's a workhorse. It's not, it's not. It could be a defense weapon, but for them, it's really a safety weapon for, dangerous situations on the farm and doing proper butchery and
Yep.
kill.
So hopefully that'll be coming out soon. We do have one more weekend this month, by the way.
Yeah, 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's an extra week a month. So next week I think we do something else.
Brownies, was that Art and Bree? I know they're talking about taking out a hog, and I kind of skipped
Were
through
they
that video
taking
of
out-
this. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
taking.
yeah,
Or no,
yeah.
they're taking. I'm sorry, they're taking out their steer.
steer.
I watched it. I'm thinking pig. No.
I haven't watched anything.
Their 1.5-year-old steer. Yeah, the setup to that.
Yeah, that's weird. You've watched more videos this week than I have.
Well, I kind of skipped through them quickly.
Yeah.
They were just momentarily this morning.
Yeah.
And this afternoon, and I watched a few minutes of Roots and Refuge.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. As I was getting ready for this.
That's all I've watched all week.
Yeah.
So,
and I haven't watched anything all week. I don't think. Well, I may have watched one earlier in the week. But yeah. So I'll throw this out there. We've been talking about back to hog butchery and all of that, but any guys have questions for the chef, and I should probably check our Facebook.
We can go to the vegan throwdown after this if you want.
The vegan throw. We eat vegan food too. It's just we like our meat.
Equal opportunity, or as Justin says, you can make meat out of your vegetables when you need to, when you got too many vegetables.
Yeah. So cow, pig, what's the difference?
Yeah, right. Well, let's see, a lot of extra work doing the beef just by the weight for sure. So
yeah, Brownie was Art and Bree.
Yeah, so meeting Art and Bree was good. Had a really good time with them.
Yeah.
Art's really quite skilled. He said he didn't have much experience. He'd done kill on things a number of times and really grown up doing pork a lot through the years. But he had less experience with sort of the fabrication and the cooking.
Yeah.
But he's great.
Yeah.
On that. So we did have people that really got more interested into processing and cooking and making bacon and making sausage and process, and putting out a bunch of recipes that most of it I've modified and made my own adaptations through the years, but based upon some really good professional chefs and traditional recipes for making good stuff. So yeah.
Watched many videos with sitting on a rock in the milk stall and while digging dirt and rocks from the stall.
Well, Justin says he listens to the motivational guy, the old timer guy. Well, he milks.
Yes, he does.
Did that, and I'm blanking on the guy's name.
So I grew some
mung beans.
Was that mung beans? How do I separate the holes from the bean sprouts?
Oh, that's interesting.
We haven't grown them yet. I mean, we've grown some to full and to get more.
We actually grew mung bean and got beans, but we didn't do sprouts yet. They're sitting here somewhere, probably on the floor.
Yeah,
we need to do something with them.
Here.
I like mung beans. They're not my favorite. I've definitely seen places sprout them.
Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar, of course, I knew that. Yes. So as far as how do you separate off, the different ones, I don't know if they cut them or what. So in restaurants, it's generally not legal to do that because you have to have a special permit for sprouts. And do know at home also, sprouts are one of the most dangerous things in a home kitchen because they happen in a warm, wet environment. So the possibility of E. coli and salmonella issue, or just E. coli, I think most like
E. coli or
listeria is in cooked meats.
Yeah,
I think it's E. coli and salmonella. Anyways, it can just breed it, and so it is notoriously potentially dangerous, and so you're not allowed to do it in a restaurant. So it's something we always just buy when we need them, and they're not that expensive. But I know a lot of people love sprouting at home, and we do know there's good health benefits and enzymes and things going on with sprouting. Just be very aware to work very clean and be if you see weird mold and things, anything that's weird that's growing, if it doesn't look right, don't trust it. Just throw it out, sanitize everything, and start over. They're not that expensive. It's not the end of the world if you lose some sprouts. If you get a really bad, E. coli or whatever, then it's bad.
White picket fence. If it's uncured ham, Um, a lot of the uncured ham has celery juice
Yeah, we've
extract.
talked about that a lot in class. There's a lot of, I think it's a scam. It's a technicality. You must cure meats of those styles in general to sell them according to the USDA. What they do is it will say uncured, and then I'll have an asterisk, except for the addition of uh,
Celery extract.
celery extract or dehydrated or concentrated celery juice containing natural nitrates. So effectively, you're getting a natural source of nitrates. The nitrates are in there, whether they're different than the chemically derived or not. I think that's debatable. So you're seeing a lot of uncured bacon, a lot of uncured ham, a lot of deli meat because it's a hot topic. They're using celery juice. If you're trying to really lower your nitrates, heart conditions or otherwise, or
Yeah.
sensitivities, headaches, and such, that still may not be good enough. Now, you can make fresh bacon without adding any nitrates,
Yeah.
but you must hot smoke it, not cool smoke it. So fully hot smoke it to 155 over like a 180 smoker or grill or oven. If you do that, you do not need to put any nitrates. It will look like it has. It will look grayish, not pink, and it will taste very slightly different. Nitrates have a slight flavor to them, but it will still taste really good and bacony. So that's your best bet is buy pork belly. Pork bellies uncured, skin off or skin on. Do your own salting for a week, and then bake them out and process them. Um, yeah. So just watch that uncured thing. I don't believe. Plus, I believe when you add salt and sugar and thyme to a meat product, you are already
Curing
naturally
it.
curing.
Yeah.
Whether you add nitrates or not, you have chemically changed the product by injecting salt, removing water, and changing the muscle structure makeup, and that is curing. But the nitrates are there for safety. And so I am a big proponent of using nitrates, although we know that some people have sensitivities to them, and eating large amounts of nitrates for a long period of time can lead to increasing cancer risk. But
But
versus dying from botulism, cancer in 80 years versus dying from botulism, I'm going to have to take the nitrates on some of those things.
yeah, but I mean, whether you use the celery ones or the other
Yeah.
ones is the whole
Does it have less
difference.
salt? No, not necessarily. You can get some lower salt, but again, salt is regulated by USDA on the formula. It all has to be tested. So if it's commercial, it's going to be safe. If you're making it, be careful on reducing the salt very much.
Because it
Salt,
kills things.
salt kills things and makes them safe.
Hmm.
Sugar does the same thing, and it also has flavor and textural. It has physical properties. So your flavor and texture won't be quite right, but the safety is a bigger issue. Just talking to a friend at the farmer's market, they do a lot of jams. He's done some low sugar jams. And he's like, look, when we did low sugar jams, he goes, we don't get the longevity. They seem to kind of go bad and funny about 3 times faster than a full sugar
Yeah.
jam. He's like, it's nice that it's low sugar and that people can eat it and you're using a low sugar pectin and all that. It's all wonderful. But the reality is, he says, there is a preservation as well as a taste and textural quality in sugar that if you can do full sugar,
Yeah.
sweetened, then it is preserved longer.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, they're getting away with it because it's not.
it's a technicality.
Yeah, it's a technical difference.
So we talked about last week. So they'll call it, it's celery powder. It's not celery seed. It's not celery salt. It needs to be
Extract.
celery. Yeah, it's concentrated extract of celery juice or of celery, and then it's dried and pulverized, powdered. But you also have to bacterially inoculate it because the bacteria converts the nitrates to nitrites or the other way around. If it doesn't have the right amount of bacteria, it's not going to naturally convert to make it safe. So they've guaranteed all those things, and they call it celery. Uh, we looked it up last week. It's not celery cure. It's called celery. They put a name on it so it doesn't say cure, and that's what you need to buy. It was $36 a pound was the source I found. It's pretty pricey, but
Yeah.
we were using it for the roads because they don't do cure, nitrate cure, the TCM tinting cure mixture. So for the few things that we needed it, which was actually very little,
Use celery.
we used the celery extract. So yeah, I think it's good if you're concerned and you want to try it. It's well worth it. We know that it will be safe.
Do you know much about the science of clabbery milk? Took the goat's milk that the goat stepped in, put it in a half gallon canning jar with put a plastic lid on it. Next day, the lid was broken and pushed off and found curds all over the counter.
Oh, well, I would not eat that. How about that?
No, because the goat stepped on it.
Yeah, so clabbering or clotting is a bacterial process. So once the goat has stepped on it, whatever's on their feet and in the soil, whether it just be basic soil or plant material or possibly poo or hair, um, you've contaminated it for sure. Almost any time anything gets in it, I know some people, if they get a little speck of hair or something, they'll filter it out. But
Yeah.
you've basically you have inoculated with bacteria anytime anything gets in it, even if it's just exposed to the air during milking. You've probably gotten small amounts, but a foot is going to you're going to get some yeast in there for sure. You're probably going to get some other stuff, and
The issue is most of the stuff coming from the uh, poop of the animal would be on the
yeah,
foot.
and you get the you're going to get some lactose. So you're probably going to have 20 different things in
Yeah.
there. You're going to have potentially 3, 4 things that are potentially dangerous. You're going to have a couple things that are going to cause it to sour. The clabbering, which is probably lactobacillus, because of the heat in the jar, the warm milk. It's going to culture. It's going to build up acidity. The end result is the reason it breaks is you're going to get acidity, which causes curds, and it comes apart. But you can do that with rennet. You can do that with the vinegar. You can put drops of vinegar to make cheese,
Yeah.
and things. So it doesn't mean just because it's curded that it's dangerous
Or
or
that it's
going
good.
bad. In fact, it can be the beginning process of good.
Yeah.
So I know that just from our biology and background training, I think the only thing you could do with that is you can strain it out, make sure you get any chunks or any dirt out of it through a fine mesh, and then you're going to put it on the stove and you're going to bring it to
Boil.
well, you don't need to go to a boil.
Okay. So
165 is food safe, and I think you can pasteurize at about 145, but look up what pasteurization temperatures are.
But then you pasteurize if you didn't want to pasteurize.
So you're going to want to pasteurize it. So if you need that milk for eating, and you can't just give it back to some animals to eat, chickens or pigs or whatever, then you're going to want to pasteurize it or cook it. And once you've cooked it, you can make a ricotta. You can have it just warmed and then cool it quickly, and you can drink it. It's not going to be raw anymore, but you can go back and make cheese. You can drink it and such. So that's your best way to save it. So salt, sugar, and thyme. Yes, both. I like all of them in there. Thyme is probably my favorite fresh herb.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I am very
Time or time.
Yeah, uncultured, milk, raw milk. I am very leery and concerned about. I understand the properties, and I think it's a really neat thing. But again, it's one of those things that's a little bit of Russian roulette. And if you know that you've already contaminated it, the possibility of really debilitating sickness for you or for kids, things that hurt organs, may possibly kill you, possibly make you go blind. Really, really serious things could happen, and I want to eliminate those risks. So I'm gonna use it, and if there's a pile of poo in it, I'm not using it. But if there's I'm probably gonna use it, but I'm gonna filter it and I'm gonna cook it as soon as I can get back, and then I'm gonna set it aside for special uses. Now, once you've cooked it, you could still cool it down, and then you could inoculate it with a known culture and make yogurt and get it. Yogurt's done in the next day. And that's probably the best use for a cooked milk to get a high quality, and it's so now cultured with, is to probably do a yogurt.
So, never had it go nuts like that. It's probably just whatever bacteria
something got in there. Yeah.
It's whichever
spoilage bacteria.
It's whichever bacteria got into what percentages, because you probably have multiple bacteria.
Part of what happens is they look at the rise in pH or the lowering of pH and acidity as spoilage bacteria. All coliforming bacteria that form clusters and form part of their, they metabolize just like we do. We go to the bathroom, they basically give off alcohol, vinegar, different things depending on what the bacteria is. Almost always their byproducts is they tend to grow and metabolize the sugars in the milk. They give off acid. So you can check the pH.
Mm-hmm.
If pH is changing and going down, you have bacterial activity, and that's a sign of coliform activity. You get enough acidity causes curding and coagulation or clabbering.
Yeah. Time or Thyme again.
Tiami.
Time.
Salt sugar thyme is curing for me. Now you can cure in the wind with simply thyme. And primitive curing is fish or meat hung in the wind on the
And
coast.
dried.
The next thing would
Of
be,
course, you have salt if you're on the coast.
well,
Most
that's
places.
the next. So salt in the air. So first thing is dried beef, dried fish. It's not very tasty. It goes through
You could
some
do smoked.
fermentation. The next step is dipping it in salt water from the
Hmm.
coast or salty area, hanging and drying that. That's salt cod and such, or you're brining. The next step from that is hanging close to a fire, because you would hang in a woodshed or a place that had a fire to, one, be dry and sheltered, two, keep it away from pests. So that's where you get a light smoky flavor on a cure. Next step is getting it really in the smoke and smoking it. And then, of course, starting to add salt, sugar, and going through it. So there are multiple ways to begin that preservation curing process.
Nellie,
And you can pickle.
we both have a science background, and Mike is a trained chef as well. So you were pre-med and then decided to go to
And I can
culinary
tell you,
school.
culinary school teaches more and more science and details, but they're generally pretty poorly, um, still pretty poorly trained, most students. And I'll tell you, most students don't pay any attention, have no interest, so they
To the
don't,
science
there's
part.
no incentive, but it gets you out of jams because you understand how things work, how to fix things, how to make things better, and how to make things safe. On the other hand, you can get a food science degree, which is it's a practical science degree. And they take a couple cooking classes, and I know some food scientists will argue that some are wonderful cooks. I will tell you, there's lots of food scientists that are phenomenal scientists, understand many things about how food works. They are terrible cooks. They have no, it just, and so those are two disciplines that
Yeah.
they have to work together to get the
Things to work.
result of how do you make 1,000,000 units a day? How do you make it safe? How do you make it attractive? How does it store? How does it taste good? And oh yeah, and then the nutritionist got to get in there and say, after you did all that, is it still actually worth eating? So there are a lot of specialties in mass-produced food. When done right, it's brilliant, and when done wrong, we see some of the crazy stuff that's out there. And then you got to market it. So that's another group.
And it's still mass produced.
And they're all doing food, but some are good cooks and some are not. But they're all important in that food process.
And there's limitations obviously to mass produce. You got all this science and food and chefs and nutritionists all behind it, but in the end, if something contaminated a batch, it's a huge batch.
Yeah, I mean, look at these 1,000,000-pound recalls on beef and things. It's just huge.
Whereas if you know your farmer, you know they have clean practices. They're open to your visiting the farm. If you don't raise the meat or the produce or whatever yourself, okay, if one small farm that sells locally has something happen, it's only going to affect a few people. That's going to suck for those people. I get that, but it's not going to be
just as bad for the people affected, but in
it's smaller
the national
level
scope, it's not really a big deal. But we do want to prevent all kind. And so if you go back to the old practices, there's some really good things that we do. You'll see things in Europe that are allowed, especially things in Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, there are really good reasons why we shouldn't do it, because there is a remote or a better than remote chance of some really nasty things, botulism being generally among the worst things. However, there are things that we are so clean here that we're like, why can't we do some new things? Why can't we push the envelope? You're getting crazy and so much sanitizing and dipping and whatever, that you have to evaluate the practices. And so the U.S. system's pretty good, but it's far from perfect, for sure. Hoof flavored milk. Yeah, that's
No.
Yeah.
Because the dogs, yeah, and I don't know if our dog would have a strong enough stomach for some of it too.
Dog, I mean, you can get animals sick. Generally, they're better off than
we
not, but they will respond to E. coli and salmonella to some degree. Botulism for certain will hurt an animal as bad as it'll hurt us.
Friend in the hospital was served chicken salad on lettuce, and the chicken salad smelled bad, and she complained. That's bad when the hospital's giving bad food.
That's an issue. Most hospitals aren't even making their chicken salad. They're buying pre-made chicken salad in tubs, which tastes terrible to begin with. Maybe that's why it smelled bad. But if they keep it around too long, it spoils.
Yeah.
One interesting thing is spoilage bacteria, which smells so foul and really can make you want to retch and turn your stomach. Frequently is the
Not the bad stuff.
The fat breaking down.
Yeah.
And the fat breaking down, which smells like rotting fish, as bad as it smells, typically won't get you sick.
Or it won't kill you
It's
anyway.
the yeah, it's the lipid. Yeah, you have a response to want to be sick. It's the lipid fat breakdown, and that's an issue. Actually, the stuff that's really bad, Salmonella, E. coli, and
Botulism.
botulism, Listeria, cannot see it, cannot smell it. Sometimes they'll puff a package, sometimes they won't. So you can eat it and be happy as can be and fully contaminated
And get sick
and get sick or die.
in 8 to 24 hours.
So yeah, so that
Yeah.
idea
Or
of
48
smelling
hours.
is and looking,
Yeah.
does it look funny? Does it look slimy? Does it look abused? And there are things that we teach to look for, like frozen things. If you see a lot of ice crystalling, that means things thawed. We don't know how long at that point before they got refrozen. What happened? So that's a sign commercially that if we have a thaw out, we need to reject things. If things get shiny and sticky, that usually means you got pretty heavy amount of bacteria growing on it. You'll see that on meat as it gets old.
Mhm.
Some of that bacteria, if you rinsed it down and did things, it may be perfectly fine. We just don't really know. So yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, if you're unsure about it, don't eat it.
yeah.
And Tyson has had multiple recalls.
It's just because they handle so many millions of pounds,
That's
and
the problem
yeah.
with the mass produce is you contaminate something, it contaminates so much at once.
God, that's interesting. Hospital, because hospitals usually have a program called Seaborg or some other things, which they punch in all your material and it makes it, and then to monitor what you can actually have. They're usually very good about that,
Yeah,
but everybody makes mistakes. But those are
that's
mistakes they should not be making in a
yeah.
hospital. And I do work with. I have a number of friends that work in nursing and senior care as well as hospitals. I do vend some product to a hospital. I am very careful with the product, and it doesn't, for the most part, I don't think it even goes to patients. It goes to staff and such, and people that are there visiting. But I'm careful with my labeling. I'm careful with my production. It's the same standard as everything else, but I'm even more mindful that it's going to a hospital.
Yeah.
So
So White Picket Fence found one hospital that served great food, but the medical treatment was really bad, and how they
that's
transferred the patient. But they had the best turkey. Um, Actually, we have a decent hospital, a community
I
hospital
think
in
our
town.
local hospital is doing a pretty good job. Not
Yeah.
perfect, but their food program is pretty good. They're pretty progressive. They're buying a lot of local product.
Hmm.
They brought in real chefs over the
They're going
last
to
few
70%
years.
local.
They're trying to go to 70% local. I think they're approaching 50 now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think for a medium-sized regional local hospital, they're doing the right things. They're really pushing
Yeah.
training and knowledge and of diet and food as medicine, and that if we're spending all this time dosing out medicine, why aren't we spending a lot of time dosing out the food to keep people comfortable, as happy as possible, and then hopefully to repair them. They still have ways to go,
All right.
but they're on the cutting edge
Yeah.
um, nationally on some of their programs right now. So
Yeah.
those are good things.
Absolutely. And to wrap that up, we're after 10 o'clock, and I really
Yeah.
should get ready for bed here soon. So unless there's any other cooking questions or um, anything else that comes up, we will be back next week
We have a farmers market and grocery store
at the hospital.
at the hospital. My products are actually 4 or 5 of my products
Are
are
sold.
sold there, and they sell pretty well. And they don't
Yeah.
raise the prices dramatically on their products. So all local food farms, they consider it an extension of their kitchen. So people are like, well, how can you do this? I said, well, if we buy 1,000 pounds of carrots a week and we nicely package up or have buy packaged carrots from the same farms and we put 10 pounds up there, it's not a big deal. We consider it another cooler. It's another unit where we store things. And if they start sitting there for a while and don't get used, we'll just bring them back down. And the ability to use a small amount of potatoes, peppers, or carrots is super easy. Then they have some packaged items that sit longer. And so they see it as a small extension in a food access for mostly employees and people coming through. They're like, I can make bad choices and get, food, pick up food that may not be so healthy, or maybe I can stop in here and get a few better choices and then go home and make a better meal. And they're using it for that. And they're doing like $10,000 a week in sales on groceries.
Nellie, you live close to the hospital we're talking about in Kalamazoo. I was trying to figure out where you're saying you live close to, but yeah, it is a cool program at that hospital. Um, and they're expanding that more and more, and which is nice.
They're doing a lot of community programs. They're interfacing with the colleges. They're interfacing with um, teaching, inner city, senior, food impoverished areas, and they're actually putting money at those programs to reduce the severity and the people coming in to the hospital. And a lot of hospitals I know around the area talk this game, and they really mean it. But I'm not sure they're doing a lot of it.
I don't
Well,
think
they're
they,
actually really doing a lot of this
yeah,
in our area.
and
So,
I think a lot of the
go Tyson.
okay. Um, I think a lot of the hospitals who talk about doing local and are excited about doing it, then they start realizing the
It's really
price of
costly.
doing it.
You need better staff, more staff, and you need a bigger budget
Yeah.
for buying some of these things to make it work. Because the system's kind of broken, and you can always get a better deal, but you're not always getting the same product. So once you decide to make those sacrifices and intelligently
Yeah.
seek out the right solutions for the program, it's not easy, but it seems to work.
The white picket fence, that is definitely people leaving the hospital, people visiting the hospital, but I would say the staff are
The
probably the
staff, I
most
bet, are the biggest. So you have people
biggest
that are
burden
in there.
source.
It's close to the ER wait or the OR, the ER waiting area, which is a fairly large area. It's above the cafeteria. So it's half of the gift shop was taken over. And I'm like, man, how are they going to make revenue compared to the gift shop and all the markups on that? And I said, actually, we're not. They're not so concerned, but they said we're actually moving. I heard in the first month or so, $10,000 a week. I was told. I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I have had a number of staff and clients of mine that buy products say, hey, we buy it at the hospital. It's great. We can pop in there. Um,
And it's right downtown Kalamazoo.
yeah, it's right
So
downtown. So, and it's open till like 6 or 7. I think they're going to push their hours back to 7 or 7:30 because some people want that
overlap.
last overlap of the next group of people finishing up.
Yeah.
So
Shift changes.
it's fully open to the public. In fact, if you live in the area, you can walk in there and just go buy groceries there, if you know it's there and want to do that. But
Couldn't just woke up.
yeah, I'd say mostly staff, and then those people that happen upon it. And you can get something. You can get, I saw celery root in there at one point. I mean, you can get an apple, and some of it's snackable. And they do have some healthy granola and locally made snacks and some healthy, they have some popcorn, which isn't any healthy, not healthy. But they have some of those alternative things that are grab bag things that you can sit in the waiting area while you're waiting for somebody to get out of surgery or whatever. So
that's cool. So yeah, UAB has a
we had a farmers market that I participated in last year, and then they went to actually having this marketplace replaced it. That's runs, I think, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. So okay, well, I'm gonna say that we should probably wrap this up because it's after 10, and we don't need to go to 10:30 at night every week. We should probably be stopping at around
lots
10.
of stuff going on this week. Got top secret project tomorrow that I can't talk about. Doing a
So you bring it up as a teaser.
Doing a work collaboration.
With somebody.
So with pasta projects.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, and then I got a community buyer seller local food get together for buyers to meet and see new local products Tuesday, and teaching a pasta class
and
next
weekend. Charlie is coming along with my sister and my new niece, baby Finley. They're coming to visit for the weekend. So we have more visitors next weekend. The weekend after, we're going out of town for a day. So it's
Carrie, you're out in the middle of nowhere. You just don't have anything. You need like a helicopter drop of good stuff, right?
Oh no. Vanderbilt has a farmers market one day a week. Yep.
Yeah. And I think a lot of hospitals, through their food access and their dietitian programs, have moved to hosting a farmers market. So that's
Bandana, we're just shutting down.
Yeah.
Oh no. But yeah, so you guys, we are going to definitely say good night. But we will be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, again, as every week. And hopefully I can get a couple hours in here to get you a video during the week. So, I'm not going to make any absolute promises, but I do have one that's halfway done. So we'll work on it. Yep.
Was Aim High here the whole time, or you just jump in there?
Aim High's here?
It's right there.
Hi.
Yeah, we're
You guys
finishing things
listening?
up, but of course we'll have the replay up in a few
Yeah.
minutes.
Yep. So for those of you guys just joining, catch the replay. It'll be coming up soon. And otherwise, we will see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set your little bell thing to go off when we
Yep.
go off.
Thumbs up and follow, and hopefully you'll get an alert most of the time it
Yeah.
comes through.
Yep. So we will see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Good night.